Welcome to Devoted to a Soldier resource panel. It has been a while since a holiday or traveling has not fell on Thursday. So you are number one in 2021. Mr. John, how are you?
Nice. I'm great. Thanks for having me. A little under the weather, but I'm alive and we're here. So let's go for it.
You're alive and you have risen to the occasion. You're going to bring it all.
Yeah. Especially, I'm a boy too, so we have, have like man colds. So when you have like a man flu, plus, it means I'm just extra whiny and complaining. So I'm not going to do that here, though. I'm going to have a 20-minute break from complaining about my flu symptoms.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
you bet.
It's a break. As Danny over here, not so as my kids will tell you, I'm not the one you come complain to.
See, I'm like, I knew it. I planned ahead.
No. Is like death at the door? No. Then you will survive. Have you had a child? No.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. But I planned ahead already. I thought, okay, suck it up. Try to act manly. See what you can do about that.
But before we take right into it, because we have some great discussion topics for today. Tell the world a little bit about who you are and why I think you would even be valuable to the show.
That's a question I'm trying to answer for myself anytime anyone talks to me. So I appreciate you accommodating me. I started out in the military some time ago, working in intelligence as a cryptologic technician, and then went into the SEAL teams, which is how I ended up working with a lot of the veterans and whatnot. And over the years, I've spent a lot of time working in domestic violence, stalking, harassment prevention, child sexual abuse prevention, things like that. And I also run the Navy SEAL candidate program and some other youth programs for development for the Navy SEAL candidates, of course, but also academic, professional, and I don't use the term at-risk youth much. I find in today's era that all kids, regardless of their opportunities, are somewhat at risk. There's a tremendous lack of education about what's happening to the minds of our young people right now in pandemic and whatnot. So even the young folks with the best opportunities are in some of the greatest trouble. And in fact, since our topic today is about suicide and things like that, the under 20 crowd is one of the real increases we're seeing, completely sensible. Although it may not be to parents, and I understand that, but it's completely sensible. If you look at the last year and a half, that your kids they might have gone from straight A students to Fs and be extremely challenged right now. And I listen to therapists every day say, I'm just astounded and I don't know what's going on. It is so logical that they would be traveling down this path, and older people as well. Just what brought you and I together is to talk about suicide prevention, depression, anxiety.
Yeah. So I want to just kind of go right into it, is that we have this massive growing of awareness. It's out there. We all know what happens. It's big in you just talked about it in the youth, but it's very big in the veteran community. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about, but it translates into, every aspect. And like you said, it doesn't matter where you come from, it hits you. So here we are being aware. We know this now, as when I was a kid, my best friend committed suicide. We were 15 years old. I remember it. His name was Josh Love. He was just we were two thieves together, right? Two peas in a pod. He committed suicide, and it was this very hidden, you didn't talk about it back then. We're in a different world now. We know it's there. So we got awareness. Now what? How do you shift from, okay, we're aware now, we've been aware for multiple years. What do you do about it?
It's a great question. And I love your phrasing. When you keep using the term awareness, awareness is very interesting. Even when we watch the 22 push-ups a day, and my caveat to that for anyone listening is I am not knocking that at all. It's just that my job, our job together, all of our jobs, is to actually move the needle in understanding how things happen and stepping back so we can find out what it looked like before that happened, and then before that happened, and before that happened. So, and making changes there and understanding. So what I love about it is we talk about the 22 push-ups and whatnot, but we've also developed a culture that says if I post the coffee pots post on Facebook, or if I post my 22 push-ups, I've actually done something. Now, our brain is kind of designed to think we're doing something because we have done something. We just haven't done anything to actually affect change there. We may have done something for ourselves, just to actually make ourselves feel a little bit better, which is fantastic, by the way, because we've reached out and made a community statement, and that's where self-esteem comes from, which is the opposite of depression and anxiety and leading to suicides. So that self-awareness was truly a great thing for themselves. But when we look at making a change, we end up having to back up. And say, is it suicide I'm after? Or is it the millions of people who can't figure out how to train their brain positively, or can't figure out how to get out of the negative long enough to where they don't end up down that road? Because suicide is actually a very small number, and I'm not minimizing it. I'm saying there's millions and millions of people on a path before that.
Right.
So if we went back to that path, we're also going after suicide. We're simply saying, oftentimes we're just focusing too little, too late.
Right.
Yeah, too little, too late.
So there is this thing, like Andrew's on, and Andrew made a great point about, preventing, right? So I do actually, Andrew, think this. So we have the awareness, and then you have this middle ground of prevention, and then you have the change that you have to create neurologically and in your environment, right? So that preventing is maybe the bridge. I feel like Andrew does the IW hikes, like one of the things he does. He does multiple things, but like one of them is that, where I feel like that is that bridge, right? You take being aware of it, and then you create some sort of action that makes people feel safe and good, right? With these hikes, the camaraderie, the communication of it. But then you need to take that further step after that, because people are going to go home. That's where all of those other things, I think the programs that he has, that he's involved with, and things like you kind of do that. Because sometimes, don't you think, just getting out of our own way, out of the door, is the issue?
Yeah, in fact, you and I have talked about this before. What is the first thing we stop doing when we're really beaten down? We stop showing up. One of the first things we know we're in trouble is we stop showing up. Might be someone stopped taking a shower, till the middle of the afternoon, or they stop getting up on time, or they stop showing up. I worked with one of the veterans therapists the other day on a podcast, and she had said it's the most she can do to get her veterans to actually show up for their appointment. And I said, yeah, that's how you can really see how much of a change it was from the military, because almost all of us accepted showing up in the military. And all of a sudden, enough changed in the world. And I hope people really hear this. All of a sudden, enough changed in the world where showing up not only wasn't important, they couldn't do it. So it's not weak. It's not weak. Chemically can't activate the part of their brain that says, well, it's this time of day. I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up. And that takes steps. So when you said prevention and what's next, very, very wise focus, because that takes steps. And sometimes the steps aren't showing up. The steps are actually being able to see where the angles of opportunity are about getting to sleep at the right time or doing things. There's a lot of drug use and alcohol around, and that makes it exponentially more difficult. If you're the parent of a teenager, video games in the middle of the night, and video games more than a couple hours a day, they are crushing the self-esteem and the ability to create joy in the brain of your teenager. And I'm not against video games. I've played some all night years and years and years ago, and justified losing all that sleep. So I love them too, but they are crushing your self-esteem, and they are ruining a teenager's ability to actually make logical choices. That's so crazy.
Yeah. Do you think that actually even comes out, not just as a teenager, but older? Because I know older, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s that play video games. And I
Yeah,
can tell you
absolutely.
as a parent of my boys, when they were on the video games more than like 20 minutes, they were dicks, pardon my French. I'd be like, you guys are complete asses. And
Yeah,
they were totally different people. And I have the most caring, loving boys. Like they
yeah.
would never be mean to me, but you put that in front of them, and I'd be like, "Oh, you're gonna get a smackdown here."
Yeah, I love what you're saying. Brains are really smart. Brains are really smart. So they might think they want to play forever and hours and hours and hours, but our brains are smart. And we know by our behavior that our brain is screaming at us to make a choice, right? For anyone out there who feels like, because I don't care whether people drink, don't play games, don't play games. There's not just one way, by the way. So everything I'm saying is not, oh, there's this model that you have to fall into. No, there's a wide variety there of what makes one brain start to, promote more positive stuff. Remember, we are naturally wired to the negative, right? We are wired for our limbic system, fight, flight, or freeze, to be the strongest brain response we have. So then we add some news in there, we add some video games, we add whatever. But your brain is also super smart. It knows when it's ruining itself and it reacts. So we have to have a lot of resistance. I'm going to say, oh, Mom, it's just video games. It's no big deal. We're going to get super resistant because my brain is smart. It knows when I'm not treating it well. And so I have to come up with this aggressive resistance out there, which is why resistance is one of the first signs of being stuck in a negative loop, so.
So is the resistance even kind of like how we make excuses for that? Is that like one of our, I don't know the word I'm looking for. It just left my brain. But So we're resisting. We know we're not supposed to do it, but it feels so good because it's our natural, brain pattern. So we make excuses to kind of stay in that pattern. We try to trick ourselves, even though we're not tricking ourselves.
Right. And we've all done it. Think about sleeping in. Think about the snooze button. Okay. We take the snooze button. The alarm goes off, we hit the snooze button, and we hit more. For most of us, or for a lot of people, right away, we start telling ourselves a story. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to adjust this, and I'm going to be late for that, and be late for this. Feel all the resistance coming up because we knew we set that alarm for when we had to get up.
Right.
And maybe we set it with one snooze button. I always tell people, pick one thing. Pick one thing, because you can't take your video game habit. You can't take your stay up all night and watch TV habit. You can't just go cold turkey. There's a concept in doing a lot of training like this that you can't take something away without replacing it. Because you remember, even for the people playing all those video games, if that's all they're doing, sure, it's crushing their self-esteem. It is ruining their self-esteem because it's not getting them outside of that world. And like you said, they get to be very, what I call left board, get to be very hostile. Hostility is a response from being afraid of feeling out of control, right? So when they're dick you, like you said, it's them really saying, wow, I'm so out of control, because the only thing pumping up that dopamine system in their lives right now is that video game. And they're made to, that video game is like all that exists. So think about one thing. For anybody out there who says, I want to create a more positive habit, start out in the morning and say, I'm going to show up on time and focused for one thing. Adam McRaven's video says, make your bed, which is actually wonderful brain chemistry training, is to make your bed every single day. Find me a person who's highly motivated or really has a tough time with motivation. It's a good chance that their personal environment is not being taken care of the same way. So that's one of the fastest ways to train your brain back towards slight positives. And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, when you're talking about this, and I'm thinking of, like, Heather brought up a great point here on Instagram, is that we have like these actions, right? We have this hike. And when you said you're removing something but you got to replace it with something else, it made complete sense to me. We have this isolation and this sadness, this lack of community camaraderie. So you're stuck in, you're basically not doing anything, right? You're not showing up. You're not getting dressed. You're not shaving, guy or girl. You're looking, you're rolling into the store in your pajamas, basically. So you switch that by showing up at a hike, right? So now you've shown up, you've given like a little piece of just like not showing up to showing up to do this hike.
Yeah.
Then you have to have that step after it. So then the next thing is, instead of going back there, you have to have the next step after, some sort of healthy connection after the hike, because now the hike's away, so it's taken. You have to replace it with something else, those preventative actions and movements.
That's a great point.
Healthy steps after.
It's a great point, and it can't be overwhelming. Here's the problem. A lot of times we take things and we're like, you know what, I'm so inspired. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do this. I've got my 5-day-a-week workout schedule. There is no way a brain can handle that. You cannot become a pro football player overnight after all those years.
Are you sure, Don? I really want to. Come on.
I know you do. I understand it. I told someone the other day in a class, I said, look, if I asked you to paint the entire apartment building in one day, what would you say? They'd say, well, it can't be done. And I said, and yet you will take your next 40 pounds of weight loss, you'll take your fitness plan, and you will act like you were going to paint that apartment building or fitness plan in like one day. It can't be done. So take one thing. Take one thing. It is very, very, you'll see this with parents. We when originally we talked about suicide, anxiety, depression. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to make a bunch of teenagers depressed, what I would do is I would start adding them into politics. And then the other thing I would do is, it doesn't matter left or right politics, I'm not taking a side. I would add them into politics and make sure we're indoctrinating them about how unsafe they are. And then during the pandemic, I would send them all home and have them online at school, because remember, your teenager's self-esteem comes from their engagement with others. Their self-respect comes from engagement with others and their sense of achievement. It cannot be created at home.
Right. So I'm thinking, you're saying teenager, and I'm thinking of about
everybody.
I'm like, 30-year-olds. I mean, maybe I'm in that box a little bit, because I need human contact. I crave human contact. And to me, looking at you and having this conversation is not human contact. It's like a better choice.
Sure. It's a step. It's a step to recreate it. And it's a great choice. The reason I bring up teenagers so much is because at their brain stage of development, they can't actually navigate out of the hole they're in. They're stuck. That's why we have parents. Parents have to navigate it for them. But instead, we often get angry at them because, but you're absolutely right. Adults are doing the same thing too, because none of us have been here before. None of us has been right here before at this little time period. So you're going to find, remember, it is really natural. It is far more natural to be anxious than it is to be joyful.
Yeah. Oh, you said something so powerful. You were like, none of us have been here at this time. Well, I think of let's talk veterans here. You have never been a veteran before until you are one. You don't know what you don't know. You're all of a sudden, you're like, whoa. Does your brain just explode, and that is what, or spins out? Like, talk to me about that, because that was so powerful what you just said. I was like, no, you don't go into the military thinking about what you're going to feel like when you get out.
And you couldn't possibly know, to your point. Here's the thing. Let's say there's 100 billion neurons in your head right there. Every day in your military career, you've been getting up being this thing. It doesn't matter whether you hated it, whether you loved it. Doesn't matter whether you're an admin, whether you're some person in combat. It doesn't matter, right? We've always sold this as these things are combat related. They're not. They're lifestyle related. So it doesn't matter what you were doing, but every single neuron in your head woke up every single day being this thing. And then one day, you weren't. Remember, I said, you can't take something away without replacing it. So now we're asking the question, which as veterans, right, we've all asked, who am I now? Who am I now? And the lucky ones, we stumble around enough and we start to figure it out and try to keep ourselves out as much trouble as we can and do all this. But that's not a weakness. That's simply that everything you've lined up your whole neurons to be firing and thinking about every day for years is now not relevant. So we can take away whether or not you had a good job afterwards or whether or not you had a lousy job afterwards. Those are all contributing factors. But just the fact that you transitioned that far out from where your head was at every single day is tremendous. Tremendous. It's unimaginable, Danny, to your point. It is unimaginable because who would have thought? All I did was get out. I've gone home before. It's just, but you changed every single thing that you view yourself and other people through. And I think, as I've said to you before, Danny, I always say to veterans, it takes 3 years for a veteran to figure out why civilians get up in the morning. And then 3 more years to figure out why we do. You know, while we get up in the morning, that's 6 years of just trying to make your neurons figure out how to actually navigate this world. And that's not mean that you can't navigate it. It means that you hadn't spent a bunch of years navigating this world. You spent a bunch of years being someone else. You're retraining yourself to actually see things from perspectives that you never considered.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I'm taking away that it is like important things, right? As we're like closing up here, is it's normal to feel kind of icky or in that state, right? That's a normal. So when you're feeling that, it's normal. Doesn't mean you have to stay there, right? Then the fact that it takes time. So give yourself a little bit of break. Takes time to retrain all those neurons, like you're saying, to do something different that you could never prepare itself for. So with those two factors, knowing those two things that you like enlightened and brought home with so many great examples of it, what is something simplistic that they can start with now and then move into continue? But like,
all right, think about now. I say this a lot to folks, but you hear the little voice in your head that said, like teenagers, when you should start your homework, whether we should pick up that sock, when we should fold the clothes. We hear that little voice. You don't have to listen to it all the time, but pay attention to it. You don't have to do what it says. Start your day protected, meaning start my day with, again, some small tasks completed. Small task completed. Nothing big, nothing to write home about it. Because remember, it's the basics that trained you. Your leadership qualities was about how you handled the basics. It's not how you took responsibility when you were in trouble, when other people were in trouble. It was how you handled the basics of little things. So pick 1 or 2 or 3 basics in the morning. Even if you already do them twice as well. Do them twice as well. What you're going to start to notice by adding the basics in is maybe we have a little less response when it's time to go to bed and we stay up a little later, because sleep, of course, is killing us. Losing sleep is killing us. And it's one of the first things we do in transition. So go back to the morning and the basics. The reason I say morning is your brain is the most cleaned out and prepared to create its chemistry direction as we go. In those things, but go easy on yourself, but do the basics. You can't all of a sudden become a rock star overnight. You know, there's a lot of training. It's not broken. It's actually designed to be this challenging.
Yeah, I like how you said just do it better. Like making the bed doesn't necessarily mean just throwing the cover over. Like take pride in it, right? You know, like so we're in a just fun fact here. We're in a hotel now because we're like building this house, and we're like, actually, I love hotel living. I suggest it for anybody. It's freaking awesome. But I make that bed every morning very precise. I fold my pajamas I take like pride in that. And to me, it's taking pride in like my personal space into me. And kind of translated into showing up the rest of the time. But
it sure is, Danny, and there's so much chemistry in that. And now this isn't just a maybe. This is measurable chemistry here. So there's so much chemistry in what you just said that you're starting your morning. Remember, your brain wants to continue doing what we're training it to do. So if I start my morning with this positive, simple, accomplished things, there's my dopamine system. Danny's loving her whole environment. Her oxytocin levels picking up. You know, that's training your brain to say, I am more likely to keep looking for positives. If I wake up in the morning and I post some ugly posts and I'm just too hungover to move and I do all my stuff, your brain is being trained to continue that loop. That is the loop of anxiety and depression. They're both very powerful, but I tell you, anxiety and depression loop is more powerful because that's your fight, flight, or freeze. It takes courage to do those stupid little things because we don't realize how important they are.
Right.
But they are the brain. So start in the morning, go easy on yourself, pick 2 or 3 things. And like you said, now you make your bed like a superstar. And I'll casually make my bed, sometimes look at it and think, oh no, I'm going back and fixing that. There's no way I'm starting that day. I don't have enough brain chemistry to spare. So I have to pay attention to training it.
But it adds to it too, right? You start like that, and then, like I start with the bed, folding my pajamas, doing those things, and then I do like kind of my own. I have a very big tendency to go like in like that dark side, that fight or flight, very strong in this world, in this mind. Like and I think some people like feel stronger than others, right? So I feel love very passionately. Well, I feel pain really passionately too, and I can totally go that way. So I understand people that's very powerful for them. So I have to now put good things in my head and write about them and how I want to feel and how I want to make others feel and things like that and how I want to live. Like I had to like legit, John, write it down. But it started with like this one little thing and then it moved to something else. And, you know, it's kind of, I've collected.
Well, really powerful what you just said. Folks, when you find people who what we call the left board, but can go to where you said your negative chemistry is very powerful, that's actually telling you how powerful your positive chemistry is, right? People are at +1, -1. They don't have much, right? They don't have much. What are they going to bring? What are they going to bring in that way? You know, but people who can go to -8, -9, that's how much you have on the positive side too, because you are practiced at that level of energy. It's just that fight, flight, or freeze is naturally occurring. It's what we pick up as young people. So we pick up in the military. And what Danny's talking about is training your brain chemistry for those other sides. It takes real courage because that's why I teach the science of it, because otherwise people would go, that sounds so ridiculous, woo-woo. And I'm like, nope, sorry, it's pure chemistry. But you're right. That's where motivation comes from, internal motivation. Is every time you make your bed and you do those little things and you do your writing and you plan your creation of your day, you are strengthening your positive drive system. And that means the news is going to hit you a little less hard, or you will learn to avoid the news like I do, because it's a spirit crusher, right? You'll learn to avoid the news. So yeah, what you just said was wonderful. You are building up your strength. Every time you do one of those positive things, it is a chemistry bicep curl. Boom, chemistry bicep curl. It's just there in science. It's not some woo-woo thing, you know, that has to go there. It's a chemistry bicep curl. So every time you do one of those little things. So don't worry if you have something you're trying to get rid of over here that you do too much of. That's impossible to start there. They talk about, just take something simple like weight loss. If people focus on losing weight, the lack of achievement level is very high. If they focus on getting stronger, the weight loss is very high there, because they simply change the focus. Instead of I've got to lose all this disgusting fat, they said, I just really want to get fit and strong. That is a different part of your brain that went to work on solving that problem. It's just chemistry. So we talk about this negative chemistry and they talk about mental health as if you're broken. You're not broken. That's the way it's supposed to work. But the world is bombarding us with things designed to make the negative stronger. So we have to be self-directed enough to actually say, I got to get with the right people. I got to, you know, I kind of laughed when you said you can get very negative or it can be dark. Of course you can, because look how much positive stuff you're accomplishing. You can't have a +8 without having a large negative available, right? That's just well-rounded. A doctor can't help you unless they can actually hurt you. Same idea, you know, the same idea. So it's like the difference between foot soldier and samurai, right? You know when to stop and practice. So really powerful there. But for all of you out there who feel like, oh, I'm just so negative, first thing I would say is good. good.
Yeah.
You can work with that.
Great
If you have
visual.
extreme negativity and willpower, and willpower and a desire to make it, send me an email. You can work with that. It's really hard to work with people with no experience in anything, because you have to teach them everything. But if you feel like you're getting crushed by how far your head can go in one direction, good for you. That's a great place to start from. But it takes courage to start, because that chemistry is super addictive. The chemistry of the negative loop, that cortisol adrenaline system, is super addictive. It's simple. We're always a little angry or a little upset or a little depressed. We don't have to do anything special to be there. It's naturally occurring. If I ever run short on the chemistry, I just flip on Facebook, watch some politics. I'm right back there again, maybe drink a little, whatever. So yeah, good stuff. It's a great place to start if you have the willpower to actually say, I hear what these two are saying, and I'm going to go down this road. It's, the world is your oyster, but it's not an easy dive.
Right. Well, nothing good. That's why they have these sayings. Nothing worth having comes easy. If you're going to love hard, you got to feel pain hard. So I like, these are the constant things I remind myself. And I love that you go right to the chemistry, because it's not just words and fluff and blah, So what would you say for people that are like, duh, I need more of John. I need some of that. You've got a lot of stuff going. So what do
I do. Yeah. I run a series. It's free, first of all, just so you know. I'm not, I don't ever come on a podcast and try to bait you into spending money somewhere. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not the way I function. I really want to make sure we're getting good training and they're constantly evolving the process. So, but my email address is john@directaction.us, john@directaction.us. And, I run a series of what I call leadership biomechanics, which is breaking down the leadership of you, breaking down this brain chemistry, so that you really get to here's what happens when we're stuck in the negative. And then I find that when people are well informed, they start to make changes in the right areas for them, right? Because remember, this doesn't happen overnight. It's working out. We're still all here. It doesn't have to happen overnight, but it starts to train these positives. It's just not out there. There's a lot of neuroscience research lately. Peterson, David Clark, all these really people so much smarter than I'll ever be, but I started to realize we needed to have it in a package that someone could actually say, but what do I do? What do I actually do to actually start training that brain? It's really easy to say, oh, we should all be accountable. That's a meaningless term. It means nothing. We should all have integrity also means nothing. Your brain, integrity is actually you listening to you and following its directions. That's all it is. But it's smart. So when you are running late, your brain knows it's out of integrity and it has anxiety and depression, right? It's like there. So these little things. So the whole Leadership Biomechanics series is about, what do I do? How do I understand what's happening and what do I do to make it happen? Everyone's always telling us what not to do. Most of the time we're telling people, oh, don't drink too much, don't eat too much. Those are byproducts. Those are actions that came out of the before, out of the chemistry. We talk about the chemistry and say, what little things do we start to do so that I desire to eat less? I am not after eating less. That is a byproduct of having more positive chemistry. I'm not after you drinking less, but that is a byproduct of having more positive chemistry. So
that right there, everything you just said summed up from going is the exact question that I started with, going from awareness to change. And you just said it exactly that, and it doesn't matter if it's suicide, doesn't matter if it is drinking, doesn't matter if it's a weight issue, an unhealthy issue. You just summed it up with that series that you have. So there you go. Start with just the free series.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Now, so next Saturday, the next series starts, because I'm a little under the weather, if you can't tell, barely hanging on here. I'm a whiny baby. So a little under the weather. But so the next series starts, right now they're at Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific and Saturdays. But again, write me an email or I'll sign into your and stick my email address on the post where you put this. And I'm always happy to help everybody out. I always have series for free because I think it's really important. There's a paradigm shift right now. Someone the other day said, People will undervalue it if it's free. And I said, not the right people.
Yeah.
I said, see, there's the problem. Our negative chemistry tells us that I'm going to judge you if it's not the right price or the wrong price or whatever. That's part of this paradigm shift. If I talk to you about how brain chemistry works, then if we have a group of 12 or a group of 25, it's great. And I make money as well. So with corporations or whatever, but they can pay because it's for their corporation. But we'll talk about it more and more. There's a paradigm shift. Your brain is designed to lean toward the negative. Our politics, our social media, all these things are designed to promote you leaning toward the negative. Mm-hmm. And it's just one thing, your IQ drops up to 30 points when you're negative. So if you wonder why you can't organize your life and you're always negative or hungover, because that's also negative, it's suppressed chemistry. If you wonder why it's hard to be spontaneous, or you're always, like Danny said about her kids, they're being dicks, you're designed to be that way if we don't figure out the little things to do to train your positive brain chemistry. So if you find that that's you, your brain is working perfectly. It's just working the way you're training it, not the way that you'd like to be training it. It's working the way it was designed to 100%. So when people talk about mental health, like anxiety and depression makes you broken, it makes you normal. You just have to train it to the other side of normal, the positive side of normal. It's not broken. It's not broken that you're bummed out or anxious all the time. All you gotta do is watch the news. You'd be bummed out or anxious all the time.
Yeah.
There's no way for that.
That is a perfect way to sum it up. You are not broken. You're just training it.
I can show you in chemistry
instead of the happy way.
Yeah, I could show you in chemistry 6 ways from Tuesday. Not only are you not broken, if I take the inputs in your life and the transitions in your life and all those things and say, this is exactly where your strengths gained. They're just not serving you at this age. Right? So they served you in a certain environment. They're just not serving you at this age. And I'm not saying we're going to lose those strengths. I'm saying we're going to add other tools to the toolbox. I don't want to take away some of your strongest weapons. Just that once we realize that those weapons can't be used in every single environment because I changed my environment. Right. So, and like a lot of folks who grew up with a really abusive backgrounds, their strengths that got them through childhood, well, they also kept them from developing other strengths. So we just go after developing those other strengths because we don't want to lose those strengths that they had as kids. Those were fabulous. That's what got you here. That's what got you here. It's not, again, the world, we often tell people we're going to take things away. First of all, we couldn't take things away from you. But it's like hypnosis. You're going to make you just forget. No, you're just adding other tools and other weapons that are more appropriate in XYZ environments. So then the angry weapon, the fear-based weapon, the anxiety weapon is not the only thing you have to choose from. And I'll bet there's a lot of people listening to you and a lot of veterans who feel like frustration and anger is their only default setting. It might be, but it's not your only possible default setting. It just might be your highest trained default setting. And it certainly is your most natural default setting because it's all of our most natural default setting, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. It is natural for all of us. It's just that we learn to develop other tools that work better in current environments. But we don't lose the old ones. I don't want to lose the old ones. I'm stuck. I'm attracted to those.
John, you are amazing. You always give such insightful knowledge and different ways of seeing it. And I love that you put the facts behind it. It just makes complete sense and makes it be able for people to hold on and grasp to like take that next step. So thank you for coming on today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And everybody, like I said, these courses are always free. So please look me up and let's get this done because life's too short.
I'll put the email right in there so people can just harass you and get started and you won't be sorry.
I lived through my coronavirus. I think I'm going to live. I'm pretty sure I'm going to live now, but there was a couple days where I thought, oh, just shoot me now. I'm just ugly. But yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Until next time, we will do another catch up in a couple months, so you can keep bringing it to everybody. And thank you so much for everything that you do. And for everyone out there, remember, join a table, any table, be part of something. Find what you like, not what you're told you're supposed to like, and have a great night. Until next time, take care.
Good day, everybody.